What is up, TFA Fam? In today's episode, Kevin and I discussed our top 12 wide receivers. We originally recorded all 36, but it went a little bit long, so we're going to chop it up into some more manageable pieces for you all. Kev has a new wide receiver one. We're both low on Michael Thomas, and I have a Cowboys wide receiver in my top 12. Let's go. All right, Kev, aka Fantasy Wrath 13. We have a lot to get to. We're going to touch on 36 wide receivers, or our top 36 anyway. Like I said at the top of the show, you have a new wide receiver one strolling into town following the NFL draft. You have A.J. Brown at 1, Tyreek Hill at 2, Devontae Adams slides down to 3, Diggs at 4, D-Hop at 5, Justin Jefferson at 6, A-Rob at 7, Ridley at 8, DK Metcalf at 9, Michael Thomas at 10, Keenan at 11, and Julio Jones at 12. I have Tyreek at 1. I did bring A.J. Brown up to 2, Diggs at 3, Devontae Adams at 4, A-Rob at 5, D-Hop at 6, Justin Jefferson at 7, Calvin Ridley, Keenan Allen, DK Metcalf at 10. I have Michael Thomas just outside the top 10 at 11. And then I have Amari Cooper here at 12. I think we're both probably on the same thought pattern here and process of, moving A.J. Brown up as high as we have him. I don't think this is necessarily a hot take or, anything like that to have him up here. The Titans did absolutely nothing with their receiving core in the draft to really add to it outside of, bringing in Josh Reynolds in free agency. Then they did go and draft Des Fitzpatrick day 3. But outside of that, man, they didn't do anything at tight end. So it's basically going to be the A.J. Brown and Derrick Henry show. Talk to me about a couple of these guys that you have in the top 12, maybe some guys you went back and forth on, anything like that.
Yeah, well, I mean, A.J. Brown going 1. I know a lot of people, pretty much most people are going to have Devontae Adams at 1, and I wouldn't argue with you because I think these top 3, maybe 4 guys are kind of also are locked in here for me. And I think you could probably alter or, mix and match them how you feel. But I just like A.J. Brown's upside this year. I feel like he is the Devontae Adams of this year, right? He's in an offense with an efficient quarterback. Obviously Ryan Tannehill is not Aaron Rodgers, but still there's just nobody else there to really throw the ball to. And, Jonnu's gone. Corey Davis is gone. I still think, they did bring in Josh Reynolds, which is not a big upgrade. But if you look at A.J. Brown just last year, I mean, on 106 targets, he was still 7th in fantasy points per game with 17.2. His yards per route run, he was 2nd with 2.76, which I love to see that. That's one big indicator for wide receivers. 70 receptions, 1,073 receiving yards, and 11 touchdowns. And, that was in only 14 games. So I think it's a big time year for A.J. Brown. It wouldn't surprise me one bit if he's the number 1 wide receiver. That's why I have him there. I don't think you're going to have to take him there. I think you could probably get him at wide receiver 3 or 4. I think he has got to continue to rise up most people's boards, though, because of everything I just said. So I just love A.J. Brown this year, and I think that he's kind of a slam dunk to be that guy, barring any sort of injury. So, the rest of this list was kind of pretty easy for me, and nothing really changed dramatically past this for me with really moving him up. Justin Jefferson, I think, is in a great spot once again for this season. He's definitely going to be the alpha in this offense and be the number 1 wide receiver. The only concern ever with them is, in terms of volume, because Mike Zimmer is living in 1980 with his style of offense. But, with Justin Jefferson, I think, another year in this offense, I mean, he exploded last year. Allen Robinson, listen, with Justin Fields there, I feel even better about him. This is by far the best quarterback he's ever got to play with. So I'm happy for that for Allen Robinson. And if he was able to do all that stuff with Mitchell Trubisky and Nick Foles and Blake Bortles and all the other garbage quarterbacks that he's had over the years, then I think it's really good news for them with that. So I like that move there. Calvin Ridley is one that I probably could have a little bit higher. I am making this move knowing that Julio Jones and Kyle Pitts now are in this offense. Now, if Julio Jones gets traded, Calvin Ridley is moving dramatically up. I'm moving him probably to 8. I'll probably put him at least 4. Could possibly go higher than that because without Julio Jones there, he is going to see an astronomical amount of targets.
Yeah, I mean that like hearing you say that out loud sounded hot, and then I thought about it. I was like, is it like it's not really that crazy. Like you said, if we're following volume with Michael Thomas, I don't know how people are going to receive our ranking of Michael Thomas because if we're following volume, there's another team that didn't do anything in the draft, didn't do anything in free agency. Manny Sanders is now gone. I know Traquan Smith is now getting the Devontae Parker treatment in terms of being the off-season hype darling. We've been hearing it for Traquan for 3 years in a row now. The reason why I have Thomas down this low, and we didn't get to really talk about our feelings on these players yet, so we're kind of just hashing this out as we speak. But I am dropping him down here, like even though he's should be getting the volume again, 150 plus targets. I think people are forgetting just how damn accurate and how damn good Drew Brees was. We kind of saw him, our recency bias with him is kind of, the arm not necessarily being there, him getting injured and everything else. But I mean, if you go back and look at Michael Thomas's like catch percentage and Drew Brees's completion percentage, he was setting literal NFL records like 2 out of 3 years in a row. So I think, whether it's Hill, whether it's Winston, dare I say Ian Book, maybe Saints, what the hell you doing taking him in the fourth? Anyway, I digress. I just think that is going to be something that is going to put a pretty big dent in terms of his efficiency. And then some people might be surprised with Amari Cooper being here at 12 for me, but obviously with Dak coming back, that defense is still absolutely trash. If you look at the first 5 weeks, whenever Dak was still playing, pre-injury, Cooper was second in targets in the league. He actually had 15 more than CeeDee Lamb did at that time. He was second in catches, seventh in yards, eighth in PPR points. So I think this could be another instance of kind of following in that same track and those same footprints for this Dallas Cowboys offense. Like I said, I don't know if people are going to find that to be, a little spicy or not, but I agree with you. The top 12 was kind of the easy part here. And then after this is where I really started to struggle, not going to lie, with, trying to rank these guys. But is there anybody else you want to touch on before we start moving on down the list here? And yes, I agree. A-Rob, finally, hopefully anyway, because, a lot can change with these rookies, but we have now said this twice in one offseason, like playing with the best quarterback he ever did, in his career, and he didn't even get a snap with Andy Dalton, but hopefully Fields will really help open things up for A-Rob here. And if we look at what he has been able to do with who he has had to deal with at quarterback, it really is something special and pretty wild to think about.
No, absolutely. So I just it's a great year. I think it's going to be a great year for Allen Robinson. But as far as Michael Thomas is concerned, I think we could possibly be too low on him, even at 10. He is a volume guy. He always has been. But I think Jameis Winston is going to absolutely feed him, and I do feel pretty confident that Jameis Winston is going to be the starting quarterback. Of course, there's a chance that it could be Taysom Hill, which would change my feelings a little bit. But Michael Thomas just suffered a lot of injuries last year, and it's easy to get lost in what he did in 2019 when he had an absolute monster season. Now, he is a guy that lives and dies by volume, but even last year, he still had 55 targets in 7 games, which isn't terrible. His target share was 27.8, which was 4th among all wide receivers. He was actually first in market share of air yards last year with 42.5. And then his yards per route run, which was pretty solid as well, at 16th, which was 2.22. So there's some good indicators there that he was still really good. 75% contested catch rate, which was second among all wide receivers. So there were still some things on his profile last year that it would indicate otherwise, that he still has it. And I think he's probably going to come back with something to prove, with all the haters and everybody burying him, the slant boy and everything else. But we'll see, but I just think that he could now be a kind of a guy that everybody was taking first overall last year, or as the number 1 wide receiver, that now people are getting him a little bit more of a value for him and be able to get him him in the third or fourth round, where you wouldn't be able to do that, in years past. So I think this could be a bounce back spot, and I think that Jameis Winston, hopefully that's the quarterback that I think that that really elevates him. And like you mentioned, there's nobody else to throw the ball to. That's why I think that Tre'Quan Smith can actually be a kind of a late round guy that people should be looking at. And another guy that I actually talked about in the video that I did that's up on the YouTube channel, Early Sleepers, because Drew Brees just didn't have it anymore in terms of the deep ball. Like, at least with consistency, he didn't throw the ball nearly as much deep. His arm just wasn't the same as what it used to be. With Jameis, Jameis could throw some rockets. I mean, look at what he was able to do with Mike Evans, right? And not saying that Tre'Quan Smith is Mike Evans, and Rashad Perriman, right? I think it can be. I think it can be a real breakout year for Tre'Quan Smith. Other than that, I don't really have anything else. Where would be, I guess, just really quickly, just lightning round, where would you want to see Julio Jones go? Because it sounds like he's going to get traded. A realistic spot.
I mean, you've been talking about the Chiefs as a realistic, like he's someone I want to see him go where, and obviously if you're trading for somebody like Julio, you're expecting him to go to a contender. But I just want to see him go somewhere where he has a legitimate chance to win a ring. Like, he's just one of these players I've just loved for so long. The dude has just been straight up dominant his entire career. Even whenever he's banged up, he's still going out there and making plays. In terms of fantasy purposes, like, I guess KC is probably as best as it's going to get. But anywhere where he has a legit chance to win, just outside of fantasy purposes. Did you have any other teams on top of your head?
I think Green Bay would make some sense, obviously. Could you imagine having Julio and Devontae in the same offense? I mean, that would probably make Aaron Rodgers happy. Just kind of go all in there. They have to move some stuff around, restructure a little bit, I think, to make the money work. But because he's due $15 million this year and $11 million next year, so that's not crazy for Julio Jones. I mean, I know he got hurt a little bit last year, but I think that in the right offense and everything else, like, he still looked electric and he still looked like the Julio Jones that we've always loved. So. Yeah, you put him in Green Bay with a pissed off Aaron Rodgers again with Davante Adams, and that would be a really, really scary offense.